All right. So welcome everyone. I'm really glad to be here with you today. I'm Heather Wortman from Define Learning, and I am a part-time consultant and trainer with them. So I am the only one on the call today. I don't have anyone monitoring my chat box today. And as you heard me say, we are recording this so then I could share the link with Megan and it could be revisited at any time. If you forget something that I go ahead and show you on the site, it'll be really nice to have the recording so you could go through it if you need it. All right. I am going to go back and forth between a PowerPoint and our website. And so we'll see each other in our little Zoom room here, and then sometimes we won't. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. So I could share a little PowerPoint with you. All right, so you could see that my name is up there, Heather Wortman. I have my email there. I will share this PowerPoint with Megan as well, so she could share this out with you. It's not a very long PowerPoint at all. We have about an hour, and I really want to get us into the site and really get us working. I'll just give you a little bit of background first, but you'll have my email in case you need to send me any questions or comments or anything afterward. All right. So let me start by sharing with you that at Define Learning, we are all about project-based learning, and we are set up using the UBD design model. So this is the process that you're looking at that we use here: our set the stage, explore the background, do the research, design process, and reflections. And over on the right-hand side, you can see the gold standard. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. This is the gold standard by PBL Works for project-based learning. So basically, how I like to think about this is I like to think about it as the chunks or the pieces of project-based learning. So when I was rolling out Define Learning, it was used to be referred to as Define STEM. So forgive me if I do slip sometimes and say Define STEM. I was implementing this with K-6 teachers in my own school district, about 4 or 5 years ago. And when I talk about project-based learning, I talk about it in pieces or chunks. You'll hear me refer to that as we get into the actual performance tasks. But the pieces that I'm talking about are these little pieces of this wheel that you're looking at. And they're all very important, but I just really want to point out one that hits home with me, and it's a huge component of project-based learning. And that's the piece that says the student voice and choice. Whether you're in a face-to-face environment or a remote environment, we want to get the kids actively engaged. And I feel that the best way that you could do this, from my experience using this program, is offering student voice and choice. Everything else is very important as well. But like I said, they're just all the pieces that make up project-based learning. We have a couple of more people wanting to join us. So let me just go ahead and let them in 1 second. Okay. So moving on. So we know that all of our performance tasks, our entire website is based with project-based learning. But in our performance tasks, which I'm going to show you in just a little bit, they're all set up with a GRASP model. So you're going to see this in just a couple of minutes when we get into our performance tasks. So I don't need to read every single one to you, but you could see, to make these connected to real world problem solving, you need to have a goal. The kids need to take on a role, and it becomes so meaningful, which is a huge component of project-based learning, when they're presenting this to a real world audience. And we give you a situation to roll out with the students. And then, of course, we have the products or projects that people like to say. And of course, they're all tied to the state standards. So let's not spend any more time with the PowerPoint for now. If you could follow along with me, we're going to get you into the website, and I will explain more once we get in there. Now, before we get into the website, let me say this. Please, I want this to be very meaningful for you. I want it to be informal. So please just take yourself off of mute if I'm going through the site too quickly or you have specific questions. I'll do my best to answer. So please, like I said, I don't have anyone with me today from Define Learning monitoring the chat box. So I will go to revisit it when I give you a couple of minutes to work, but I'd rather you just unmute and please ask questions as we go along, all right? So let's get you to the site and get you logged in. So I'll keep this screen up here for a minute, and you want to open a new tab. So let's keep our Zoom call active. And then if you could open a brand new tab, please. And if you could go to definedlearning.com. That's our first step. And if you noticed from the PowerPoint, remember that it's defined. It has that D on the end, definedlearning.com.
Heather, as everyone starts to go there, it should be linked in PSD key
It's
already.
in your PS. I was just going to say, it's in your PSD key.
Okay. So great. So if we're all there, again, if I go too fast, please just ask me to slow down or just say, wait a minute, please. So I still have this screen up here for the moment, because if you're there, if you're at the home page of Define Learning, up in the top right-hand corner, you should see an orange login button. So you could click that orange login button. The next thing you'll see are two squares pretty much in the middle of your screen. If you could choose the one on the left side that says Defined Learning. So you want to enter the Defined Learning portion. And then you're going to see some options to sign in. Sign in with Google, log in with Clever, log in with ClassLink. And our implementation specialists have told me on the tech side that you should be logged in with ClassLink. If for some reason ClassLink does not work for you, you should be able to sign in with Google. And if you could just stop right there after you sign in, that would be great. Because I am going to go ahead and I want to catch up with you where you are. So I'm going to log in here to Define Learning myself. There we go. All right, so you are looking at our home screen. We have someone else wanting to join us. Hang on one second. Okay, so you have your tab open. Everyone should be in there. I didn't hear from anybody, so I'm thinking you were successful at getting in. And if you don't mind, if you could come back, I'm hoping that you entered in a separate tab. If you could come back to view my screen, that would be great. I'm going to let you go in there and explore in just a couple more minutes. But if you could see my screen, that would be great. So when you're looking at the home screen, let me just explain to you what we're looking at. So on the left-hand side, it says find your project. Now we have hundreds of performance tasks in our website. I think we're up to about 500 different performance tasks, maybe even more at this point. We're always adding new ones. When you want to search for a performance task that you want to add to your current curriculum or you want to enhance your current curriculum, please remember that Define Learning is an extra resource for you. Defined learning is not meant to be the end all be all. We are not claiming to be your science curriculum, your math curriculum, but I do want you to know that we are cross curricular. So really important to keep that in mind. I know that I've done trainings for different content teachers, social studies teachers, ELA teachers, some librarians, some music teachers. They're sitting in a training and they're thinking, oh, why am I sitting here? This has to do with STEM. So not very true. We are cross-curricular, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. So just keep that in mind. And again, let me reiterate, we are an added resource, okay? So, and we'll talk about time management in ways that I've used it with my own personal students or when I rolled it out too. All right, so first things first. So you want to dabble, you want to find a performance task. Maybe you want to search by a subject. So if you want to search by math, let's say for some reason you're talking to some grade level teachers and they really want some extra help with some math areas. And depending if it's primary or intermediate teachers, you could see that when I clicked on math, you can actually narrow down our tasks by the content area. Maybe you don't want math, maybe you want some science, social studies, language arts. You'll notice that we also have a career button there too, especially in Pennsylvania with the career mandate. I'm not really sure if you have someone in charge of that in your district or not, or if you're all working as a team. There's a little more career focused. So just to let you know what that button is all about. So just for today's purposes, I'm going to click on any subject because I like to think of it as cross-curricular. I think everybody with us today, I think our focus is more around K-8 from talking to Megan. I think that's where our focus was. So I'm going to choose a grade band and I'm going to pick something right in the middle. I'm just going to pick 3 to 5 just to show you how this works. And I'm going to click Find Projects. So now these are our performance tasks. Now remember I picked all subjects, so I'm looking at a lot. It gave me 88 of them for grades 3 to 5, all right? And I'm going to make a recommendation right here so I don't forget to say it later. If I was looking for a specific tasks for my 4th graders, please don't think that you could only search 4th grade. Please give yourself a grade level below and a grade level above. So you could take a look at all of the reading abilities, the vocabulary used. There's certain times, your students best. There are certain times that maybe you do want to choose a task that's grade 3, even though it's for 4th graders or even 5th graders, maybe. So don't get so hung up on the grade level. I just want you to know that you could do that. You could filter your performance tasks here. If you're like, I'm not looking at 88, that's way too many. So you could go ahead and decide, I'm going to change and I'm going to pick a certain subject. And maybe I don't want 3rd grade in here. Maybe I'm looking at 4th grade, but I know that these students could really take on challenges. So I'm even going to add 6th grade or whatever. You could just click off what you want. Just remember to always hit filter down at the bottom so it goes ahead and filters it for you. Okay, it doesn't happen automatically when you change things. And I think this might be valuable for some of you with us today. Do you see this little note over here where my cursor is? Include remote learning projects. So I understand that some of you might have some remote learning users too. So you might want to click this and then go ahead and filter as well. So you see some remote learning options. Now, let me preface that with saying, if you noticed what happened here, I had Aircraft Designer, this one I'm scrolling over. Look what's right next to it, Aircraft Designer, again, remote project. So if I scroll over Aircraft Designer, it gives me a summary of what the task is about. And it tells me that there's 5 products offered for Aircraft Designer. And you could even see what the products are for your students. in a remote learning environment, we need to roll out smaller amounts. We found doing remote instruction, still having the same meaning, still meeting the same standards. But if you notice, our curriculum team went ahead and they really narrowed it down for remote users. So it has more of a focus, and it has products and information in it that could be done at home with their adult guardian or an older brother or sister or whoever might be in the house with them. So that's really the purpose of that remote project. Okay. All right. So that's how we search for our tasks. And I'm going to just show you. I'm going to pick one. Oh, do you notice too? I'll scroll a little bit. They are all in alphabetical order when you're looking for the performance tasks. And the title of them, if you notice, they are actual careers, because we have such a strong career tie with our performance tasks. That's what the titles are based off of, actual careers. I'm going to go ahead and pick a popular task that's used among teachers across the country, but one that I've actually done with my students too. And it's fun, but hits a ton of standards. I'm going to go ahead and choose Aquarium Designer. So I simply click on Aquarium Designer, and it takes me to this screen that you're looking at here. And in this screen, you'll notice everything that I said, how our performance tasks are set up: set the stage, explore the background, do the research, everything that's in the process. Okay. And remember, I mentioned the grasp idea. Well, here's our grasp once we get into explore the background. I don't want to jump too far ahead. I'm just going to go back to set the stage. So once I've decided on a task, this Aquarium Designer, I'm simply going to click Customize at the top of my screen. And it's going to come up like this. It's going to say, okay, set up your project with us. And the very first thing you do is you give it a name. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this Aquarium Designer Penn Ridge Practice. Just going to call it that for fun. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, say create, and continue to edit task. And I'm just going to stop right there for right now. I'm going to show you a lot of the features and get into the task, but I'm going to ask all of you if you could go back to your tab for defined learning, please, where you're logged in. And I'm going to ask you if you could do a little search from the home page. So decide how you want to choose your subject. All right. Do you want to do any subject like I did? Do you want to narrow it down to math, science, social studies, and choose a grade band and hit the find projects? And then scroll over them. I don't expect you to go in and read every single thing in the task. Remember, this is for our purposes and for you to actually do. I'm trying to hit all the different learning styles, just like you are with your students face-to-face or remote learning. So I simply will give you 4 minutes, maybe 5. That's probably too much. If you could choose a task, and then if you hit that green customize and give it a name, just like I did, and just call it draft or practice, and just hit save. And if you could stop right there with me, that would be great. So I'm actually going to set a timer, and it's 4:23 on my clock. So at 4:27, we'll come back together. Okay, hopefully everyone has a task that they went ahead and saved, decided on. If anybody needs another minute, could you let me know now? Could you just unmute yourself and let me know? All right, great. Okay, so I'm going to show you where that is, that actually saved your task in Define Learning. So in case one day you just want to get in and you want to dabble around, and as we said, there are so many tasks in there. Maybe you say, I only have time to search right now, and you found a few that were interesting to you or that met your standards, or you know the kids would have fun with it. That's a really quick, easy way to save them. And I'll show you where we go back to get them. So just for right now, again, before I show you how to go ahead and customize your task for your students, could you go ahead and come back to the tab so you could see my screen, please? All right. I just want to go over a couple of things so I don't forget to tell you before we go in and actually customize, show you how to customize that task for your students. A lot of times with Define Learning, these are the common misconceptions. So some people think, oh, they realize this is a tool or a resource to add to their curriculum, but they think that they need to complete this task every single day once they get it started. You don't have to complete one every single day. And actually, we make a recommendation that perhaps you only do 2 tasks per school year. Some schools that we work with, they do have their teachers complete 1 task per quarter. But, you know, just from rolling this out myself in my own personal district, at very first, the first year you're using it, that is pretty aggressive to complete 1 every single quarter because we have so much we need to complete. So 1 a semester, so you have 2 under your belt. And sometimes people decide that, okay, I'm going to pick a performance task to hit many of these standards in science or math that I need to. Sometimes people roll out their very first task because it sounds fun, it sounds engaging for their students, and they just know that their students have a high interest level. So rolling out the first one, it's a good way to do it if it could allow in your schedule, especially this time of year around the holidays. So when you want to regroup and bring your students back together after the holiday break, it might be a great time to start rolling out your first performance task because it could get them back together. It's introducing something new. It's a new process really for you and your students if you're not using project-based learning all the time in your classroom. So just keep in mind, it should be a little more go with the flow the first time around using the site and realizing that, you know, there's going to be some changes or edits that need to be made. If you take a look at the second part of this in orange here, a lot of times people think, okay, I'm going to take this task that Define Learning has, and there's 5 products. That Aquarium Designer one that I chose, remember there were 5 products. People think I have to do all 5 products with my students. Absolutely not. Something you're going to see here with Define Learning when I show you the rest of the pieces. Define Learning gives you tons of information and tons of resources. It's way too many products. They do that to give you choice to offer your students as well. Each product covers different standards and learning styles. We hit all different types of learning styles through our products and through our tasks. We really recommend that you do 1 to 3 products for your students. And again, just speaking from my experience, depending on the grade level, I would roll out my first task with 2 products at the very most. And if I was in primary grade level, our kindergarten and first grade teachers, I know that they only choose 1 product their very first time going around using a performance task and project-based learning with their students. All right. And here's some advice. I might have hit on some of this already. I already talked about search around your grade level, and remember, grade level below, grade level above. We have student check-ins within our performance tasks. It gives them opportunity for formative feedback and for a lot of reflection, which we know that it's huge in project-based learning. So it brings me to this last bullet here that says customize, customize, customize. You could add your own specific directions. I'm going to show you that because customizing is next for your students. I can't say this enough. So remember, it's a curriculum team based all around the country and in Chicago. Define Learning's based out of Chicago. So they put these wonderful tasks together for us, gave us tons of information, but remember, they don't know your specific students. So I always say to my teachers, you know, you need to edit the task. So it's like you delivering the content to your students. So at first, it's a lot of information. And we know from looking at our users in Define Learning, most people choose their first task connected to the standards or because it will be fun and engaging for their students, but they don't go in and customize it because it's a lot at first. But if I could give you one huge piece of advice, is to personalize it to your students, because that's really what's going to engage them because you know them best. All right. So I have some extra slides I just want to show you. I'm not going to go through them. You'll see that this is for remote learning suggestions. This is going to be in here for you to revisit when I share that PowerPoint with Megan, and then she could share it with all of you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to customize this task that we chose. So let me go back, sharing my screen with you. Now, depending on the type of learner you are, please, I would like you to choose. Personally, I think it's easier when I'm learning something new. I want to go through and I want to do it, and I want to go through click by click. Whatever you want to do, I'm going to talk you through the customizing. So I think it's easier for you to go back to your tab. So you're in Define Learning. But if you just want to watch the screen, what I'm doing, then go ahead. It's just going to be a lot of clicks to watch as we go through. All right. So if you're back in your tab, you are looking at Define Learning up in the top, right? And that's in blue. Right under it, you see the black, I'll call it a toolbar, right? Just like you're used to seeing a toolbar. And you see home, my projects, my classes, careers, and PD center. If you go ahead and click on my projects, that's where you're always going to go find that task that you liked for whatever reason. It aligned to your standards. It's going along with a unit that you have coming up. It's just, it sounds fun. And you know your kids will do great trying it the first time. So when you choose it like you did in that search and you give it that name, then if you leave Define Learning because you know you're off your plan period or whenever you just ran out of time, you can't search anymore. You just go to that My Projects. And if you're looking at my screen, I have tons of them in there, but you should be looking at the one you saved, right? So mine was Aquarium Designer. If you look to the right of your task name, you see an eyeball, right? And that says preview when you scroll over it. If you look at the second little pencil icon, when you scroll on it, it says customize. So if you could go ahead and click on customize, it's going to let us go in and customize that task. So the very first thing we want to do when we customize is we need to figure out what kind of products, what kind of projects do we want our students to complete? What's going to be the end game here after they do some group work or after they complete their products? So in mine, I have 5 of them. So I'm looking at a cost analysis, a presentation. You're looking at something different because every task has their own products. But do you notice how there's an on-off button by every single product? Remember the recommendation. Way too many to leave all of these turned on. So just think, just for today's purposes, just for the training, all right, what are you looking for your students to get out of this? I know for my aquarium designer, and I'm just pretending here, I know that I want them to work on their presentation skills. I want to have a strong ELA connection with this. So one of my products is presentation. If you're saying, well, what are they going to have to do for the presentation? You simply click on it. If you click on the product, you'll get a window box that pops up, and it tells you what they're going to be expected to do. So mine says they have to develop a 2 to 3 minute oral presentation that could include PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever technologies my students are used to using. And you'll also notice in that product, there are some green buttons. You should be seeing rubrics and you should be seeing standards. Again, not sure how much you're going to dive into it the first time, but we have rubrics tied to every single product, especially if you're teaching intermediate grade levels. You might want to use those rubrics, especially if you're used to using them with your students. Primary, of course, the rubrics are there too, but if you're not used to using those straight away with your students, maybe the first time you're not even so concerned with them. And you'll see the standards connected there. If I showed you my standards, mine are nationwide standards, but yours are tied to Pennsylvania. And there's a little video you'll notice that goes along with explaining a presentation for mine or whatever your product is. Okay, so you could just X out of that little box. And again, just for training purposes today, I don't expect you to go ahead and read all of them. So just pick 2 for today. So I'm going to turn off. You simply click the off button and you'll notice a little button comes up, success. You know, I've turned off my cost analysis and my prototype. So I'm going to leave on 2 products for today. And I'm leaving on presentation and photo story. You make sure you have 2 that are on. And if you simply scroll down, you'll see that there's even a little Word document box there that you can add directions for your students. We're not going to worry about that right now. If you just scroll down, you see a green button, Save Changes. You want to hit Save Changes right there, so it keeps those products on that you chose. Okay. Now, if you just scroll back up a little bit, not all the way to the top, but the blue arrows, we were in project setup where we did those products. Go ahead and click on number 2 where it says edit task. It's a blue arrow at the top. All right. So now when you're in edit task, I want you to notice a couple of things here. Mine says right at the top, Aquarium Designer, Penn Ridge Practice. Yours should show you the title, whatever you saved it as when you did that search. All right. The reason I'm pointing that out to you is that's what your students will see if they click on a link to go look at this performance task from your Seesaw or your Google Classroom, whatever you are using for your students. And I just say that to you because you could make different versions. Think about this. I keep saying we're customizing it. You could customize it for 2 different groups that you're used to dealing with. Maybe one group, maybe they have a little bit lower reading level, and maybe one has a really high reading level. So maybe you want to make Aquarium Designer in 2 different groups. So maybe I would do an Aquarium Designer Group A and Aquarium Designer Group B. Of course, you would never want to put something like Aquarium Designer, you know, lower group or higher group. So that's the only reason I'm pointing that out. Your students don't see anything connected to how it said Aquarium Designer grade 5 or whatever you chose. If it said grade 2, they don't ever see that. They only see what you call it for that title. Okay. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're seeing that process that I mentioned. So we're in set the stage right now, and we're in the introduction. So really important, this set the stage is considered your hook to get them active in their first performance task. So you could simply click anywhere in those blue dotted lines. So you see where it says set the stage teacher plan? That's for you. If you click in those blue dotted lines, this is where I would keep notes to myself. So I would say Monday, 12/14, 2020, roll out Aquarium Designer. I'm not going to keep typing. Roll out Aquarium Designer and do career video with the students to hook them in, and then assign the guided questions that go with it. So it's my plan, okay? And whenever you type inside of those broken blue lines, always hit save underneath it so it stays there for you. As you keep scrolling down, you see introduction. Now your students are going to see this. This is what I was talking about, that defined learning. Our curriculum team writes everything for you. You don't have to touch anything, but if you want to personalize it, you click inside those blue lines, and mine says, as a new designer with a background in aquatic habitats. So maybe I'm going to say, as a new designer at Penn Ridge Elementary School, you're going to be designing a new aquarium for the lobby. You see what I'm talking about? You could customize it to your students, however you talk or however you want to hook them in, okay? So anywhere in the blue dotted lines, you treat it just like a Word document. If you keep scrolling down, remember I told you these are real careers and they're tied to real world careers and applications. So you'll notice that there's a career video there. I'm not going to play it right now, but it could be on day one, you assign them, you go over the introduction with primary students. I show the career video as a whole group. So whether that's face-to-face and I'm projecting it, or whether that's in a remote learning environment and I'm using Zoom or Google Meets and I'm using it in there, or if they're intermediate, the students could watch it independently on their own. And you'll notice that we have guided questions that go along with the career video, and see the red X's next to them. If I really don't want them to tell me, you know, what math skills are needed, I simply just click the X and I remove it. If I watch that video and I want to ask my students something specific about, do you believe this was a saltwater fish tank or freshwater? Because I just want to get a little pre-knowledge from them, you could simply click that add question and you could type in your own question. Every single thing is customizable. I'm going to stop there for 1 second. Does anybody have any questions, or am I going too fast? Good. All right. So down at the bottom, you could go ahead right now on your screen and click Save Changes and continue to the next section. And it brings you to that Explore the Background. Again, there's that teacher plan where you can write in there. We always give big ideas and essential questions. Some teachers want to leave them. Some teachers want to get rid of them, especially if it's for specifically all remote students, or let's say maybe primary grade levels. You may not want these, so you could just click in the blue dotted lines again. You could just highlight it and delete it and it will just go away. Or you could put your own big ideas if you just want to change it into something more simplistic or use vocabulary for your students. And then here's this grasp model that I referred to, maybe one of the most important parts of your task, because you want your students to get used to using this in performance tasks, whatever their goal is. So mine says you're interviewing for a position at a new interior design firm. So I might take that out for my aquarium designer, and I might say you are interviewing to be the student that's chosen to design the new aquarium for our lobby at Penn Ridge Elementary School, whatever. Okay, so I personalize it to them. You could delete what you want. You could leave it alone too. And your role is there, your audience, your situation. Now, for those of you looking at my screen, every task is different. I just want to tell you, in my screen, in my situation, we have some live links in there too, talking about freshwater fish habitats, saltwater fish habitats. Some of our tasks have some extra live links and some do not, but just so you know, that is in there. I'm gonna click in my situation, and I ask you to click. It could be in any blue dotted line. It doesn't have to be situation. It could be audience role. It doesn't matter. And I just want you to notice how it does look like a Word doc. And if you look at all the little buttons up at the top, if you notice the little link icon, I just want to point this out because there are a lot of teachers that say, can I add in my own links to this? I've been doing this unit a long time that talk about aquatic habitats and the environment, and I really have these good links that I've used with my kids. You would just hit that little link icon and you would just put in the title of the little resource, you know, that you want for your students to see. And then you would put the URL link in there and click the green insert link. And it would be right there for your students to click on. I think that's a really cool feature because since Define Learning is a resource, you could go ahead and add in some other items that you have. You could even upload, let's say you have a favorite worksheet or something that you like to do, or a Google Doc. You could go ahead and link that in as well. Just always make sure you hit save. Like I said, think of it just like any Word doc. All right. And then if you go underneath that, you're looking at the products. Now, remember, I only chose 2, and I recommended that you chose 2. So you should only be looking at the 2 products you chose down there. If you notice, the other ones are gone if your task had 5, 7, whatever. And I want to point out to you that next to your product, do you see that the directions there are in a blue broken link box as well? So you could go ahead if you're saying, oh, those directions are too detailed or too, that sounds funny, right? Too detailed for directions, but maybe there's just too many steps for your students. Then delete some of them and save the changes. Again, give directions just like you would to your students. And if you notice, there's those rubrics, there's anchors, and there's even research questions to help guide your students along. You know, I found working with my own students, and I hear from other teachers, boy, they really need some extra help with research. So the research questions come in handy because it keeps giving them guidance to keep having them move along. All right, so if you scroll down, let's hit that green button again, save changes and continue to the next section. So talking about research, again, Define Learning gives you tons of resources to use for your students. The first thing you're going to come to is a place where you can add your own instructions. You could upload resources. So again, upload videos. This is another spot where if you have that favorite Word doc or a Google Doc that you want to upload or attach, you would do it right there with that green button. Upload videos, same thing. I just caution you with the videos, you know your district best. Sometimes we want to upload YouTube videos, and some districts have their own filters or blocks on them. So just remember that it really depends on your district. It's not really the Define Learning website, all right, if you're going to upload videos there. So if you continue to scroll down, these are really cool. The learning objects are awesome, no matter what grade level the students are at. But you're going to notice, if you scroll really quickly, look how many learning objects. I have like 9 learning objects for my Aquarium Designer, way too many. These are things that are meant to teach students skills, reinforce them, something you've already taught. So they're not supposed to be for introducing the material. Please keep that in mind. I'm doing Aquarium Designer, and I really want to hit volume for one of my standards that I need to hit in math. So I'm going to leave on one of my learning objects is volume. So I'm going to turn off, I have a volume of a rectangular prism. I'm going to turn that one off, but I'm going to leave on my basic volume. I also have adding and multiplying decimals for my task. I don't want to do that. I'm really focusing on volume right now. So I'm going to turn off my decimals and I'm going to turn off a lot of the others. I'm going to leave on about 2 learning objects. So if you could do the same thing for me right now, again, this is just random for training today, but you could see what they are. They're little snippet videos, and they're talking about these specific content areas that you already introduced, and it's reinforcing it for the students to go back in. So let's face it, when we teach something to students, how many times do you hear, I forget, or I don't know how to do that, or you didn't teach that to us? This would be a good spot to say, why don't you go in and rewatch that volume video? And it talks to kids about volume. It gives them little graphics that are very engaging, and it actually gives them a little quiz. They don't even know they're taking a quiz. It has them, you know, drag and drop different graphics around that pertain to that topic. So if you went ahead and shut off some of those, again, doesn't matter which ones. I'm going to leave on habitat also, because I'm going to talk about that with my aquarium designer. So underneath learning objects, you also have more resources. So there's research resources, and you'll see some constructed responses. So these are all nonfiction articles for the students to read. And you should notice as you're scrolling through them that you should see about 2 options for these constructed responses. And what the difference is here, you see different reading levels. So for mine, I'm looking at some reading levels of about 3 to 5. You can look at whatever reading level works good for you, what you're used to looking at, or I'm looking at some that are more up around 6th or 7th grade. So I'm going to turn off the ones that are around 6th or 7th grade because I'm using this with 4th graders. Again, if you just want to play around with it just for today's purposes. And I want you to know that these constructed responses, when the students click on them, and you could click on it now too, it opens up the constructed response, and you'll notice as you scroll to the bottom of the article, there's an audio version there. So in case it is a little too high for certain students, they can have it read aloud to them. I think that's a really cool feature that we have as well. If you keep scrolling down in your constructed responses, underneath it, you'll notice that we even have more research for your students, and there are additional videos that go along with the performance task. You could turn them on or off. Sometimes it might be the same video that was the career video, but you could go ahead and shut off some of them if you have more than one.
Heather,
And
I'm
if
sorry.
you,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Where were you able to access the read aloud? I missed that part.
oh, sure. So are you looking at the constructed responses? Okay, so if you click on one of them, if you click on like the green title, if you click on that right now and scroll all the way to the bottom of the article, you'll see the speaker there, and the students would just hit the play button. Okay? Great. I see you shaking your head.
Thank you. Got it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So if you go ahead and click Save Changes and Continue, it brings us to the part that you're looking at that says process video. I am not going to go through all of this now. What this is basically an overview of the entire process, the design process. All right. It might be meaningful for you and your students, or maybe you just want to shut it off, and you are able to shut off all those videos in there as well. So if you would go ahead and scroll up to the top, remember the blue arrows where we went to edit the task? Go ahead and click on number 3, student check-ins. And I'm going to go through this really quickly because I know we're nearing the end of our time here. So the student check-ins give an opportunity to do just that at the end of each section. So remember, we started with a career video and there were questions. There would be a little check-in for them when they did that. If you pushed this out through Google Classroom or through Seesaw, it would go ahead and let them just check in. But I want you to notice if you scroll through this again, holy cow, there's a lot of student check-ins, right? It's too many. It's just Define Learning giving you a lot of options. So I would recommend only leaving on one student check-in in each section. So you would simply just shut it off. It's very user-friendly. So you would just simply shut off, leave on one in each section. And, maybe the final reflection is most important, in my opinion. Again, it's their first time doing project-based learning, maybe, or maybe they're just not, really good at it. And I just want to leave on their strengths, what they liked best. And maybe that's the only one I want to leave on. And again, you just click them off. Okay. So I know we have another blue arrow up at the top, skills and standards, but that really would be for a second training session that we were in, or you could go ahead and look at it on your own. It is not rocket science, but because of our time constraints, what it is basically, if your district wanted to go in and take a look at this, your administrators, if they wanted to see the standards that you were hitting or the 21st century skills, you could go in here and actually turn on and off the ones that you're really zeroing in on and focusing. All right. So let's go ahead up to the top and let's get to the green arrow. This is going to be the last piece that I'm going to share with you here before I take some questions and we wrap up for today. So we just customized. If you could click on Assign and Share Project. All right. Over on the left-hand side, see some options: assign directly to students, or the second one is where I really want you to click, share via link to students. So if you click on share via link, then look to the right of it. You're going to see a link starts with HTTPS, right? So go ahead and highlight that link for me right now, just like you highlight anything. And go ahead and copy that link, please. And then if you could go open yet another new tab. And if you just go ahead and paste that link in your web bar, there you have it. This is the student view. So if you're wondering, well, what's it going to look like for them? They're not going to see all those rubrics and standards and all those options, those on off buttons. So if you want to test it out and you're like, what does this look like for my kiddos? This is what it looks like for them. All right. So the name of it is up there, and everything that you decided. I'm looking at that I saved 7 student check-ins and 2 products for my kids. I don't have the 5 products or anything any longer. All right. So you would take that link, and I just wanted to show you the student view because I know a lot of teachers want to see that. You would take that link and you would insert it into your Seesaw, your Google Classroom, wherever you want your students to access that and be able to view it. That's how you could share it with them. Okay, so let me ask you if you have any questions.
Within the research area and even within those check-ins, if we leave multiple ones open for students, does that allow them to pick and choose, or do they are they required to see it, like to view everything, to answer everything, to move forward?
Sure. So you could offer that student choice and voice, remember, that we talked about. So if you want to leave it on, by all means, go ahead and leave it on for your students, for them to choose. It's just, I'm just pointing out that sometimes we offer too much choice, and then it causes a little stress or anxiety for our students. So okay, does that answer your question, or did I not answer that?
Yeah, I think it answered my question.
Okay, great. As far as links, if you, ooh, if you come across a link that is not active or it says that it cannot be found, then you could go ahead. They are updated. We do have a team that tries to keep up with it, but it does once in a while, something happens to the link. You could go ahead and you could email me, or you could even go ahead and insert that on a little help ticket within the Define Learning website. And it would be great. You know, we always appreciate any attention to it in case we miss something. All right. Anybody else with any questions? So if you come back to view my screen, I have a slide up there. And again, I'll be sharing this with you, but I just want you to know why it says these two different email addresses down at the bottom. So you'll see a Julie Gainey and you'll see myself, Heather Wortman. So as far as anything we went over today, or, you know, I told you that I have rolled this out with teachers in my own district. I've used it myself with grades K to 6. Please email me. I love helping and supporting other teachers and rolling it out. Even if it's something as simple as, I even watched the video, but I forget where you customize this or where you go and find your projects. I'm happy to help you. If there's something more technical, like uploading students or classes or a login, then Julie Gainey would be the woman. She would be more with the tech questions, and she's more of an implementation person that specializes for your specific district. And if you just get in touch with Megan, Megan could get in touch with myself or Julie, and anybody, any one of us would be happy to help you. I
Heather,
know we went over everything really quickly today, and there is a lot in our website, but it's wonderful to roll out project-based learning and to incorporate into units and standards that you're using with your students. Megan, is there anything else that I could touch on or answer for today?
no, I think that was great. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking, I know a question might come up about co-teachers. Are they able to be added to an account? That might be a Julie question.
Yeah, no. So if you're talking about sharing a performance task, so there is a way to share it, but it does not act like a Google Doc. They both can't work on it at the same time. Okay. So again, there are a lot of features in here, but I'm sharing my screen with you still, I believe. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll show you super quickly. You notice my name, Heather Wortman, up at the top, and all of you have this feature. If you take a look at all the options underneath there, if you go to create group, you would get a little box like this. And you would simply type in a name. I'll pretend I'm working with 3rd grade and we're the 3rd grade rock stars. Okay. And I'm going to create a group. Once I create that group, see this little access code that it gave me? I would just give that to my colleagues in 3rd grade that I'm working with. And they simply go to that, they log in, go to their name, and they go to join group. And it's as simple as that. They put in that access code and they hit join group. Okay.
Perfect. That's easy.
And then what they simply do, they would go to my groups. You could still see my screen, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So go to my groups and you can see I have a bunch of groups and tasks and everything going on here. But I'm just going to go to my group called Amazing Crew. And there we go. I have Aquarium Designer in there too. And I scroll over, see that share? I want to share it with my group. So I'd go to share and share with groups. And it's as simple as, there's my amazing crew. I'm just going to turn it on and share it with them. That's all. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Megan, if you forget something like that, you could reach out to me, Julie, either person. I know it's a lot of information the first go around. You know, I always wish I could come back a second time with everyone after they tried their first performance task and then follow up and really dive into it a little further or answer questions. But that's why you could email me too.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else before we leave?
It seems like an amazing site and fairly straightforward to use. I mean, a lot of great options, so thank you.
You are very welcome. And it really is user friendly. All right. Well, I wish you all a great week and have a great holiday break and hang in there. I know these are tough times for all of us and we'll get through it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.